A woman should be who and what she wants. We support the multifaceted woman. The woman embracing many titles, undertaking different ventures, and building generational wealth. You are a Jackie of all trades, master of your empire. Enterprise Empress, you are an unstoppable force. Welcome back, everyone. We are so excited about today's show because we have the Reverend Dr. Shirley Brown here, kind of help us keep these smiles during the holidays. So,
who are you? Did you introduce Reverend Brown? Who are you?
You know what, you guys? We are still full from Thanksgiving. Are you guys still tired from Thanksgiving?
Oh, boy.
A little bit? Because I'm like, they already know us. But if this is your first time, welcome to today's Jackie Show. I'm one of the co-hosts, Sharon.
I'm Natalie. Hey, guys.
And I'm Neidy.
And if you don't know about our show, we do this show for today's Jackie. It's the Jackie of all trades, master of her empire.
Mm-hmm.
These are women who are
embracing many titles, undertaking many ventures, and building generational wealth.
That's right. So here we have Dr. Brown, who has many titles, and she has one title that works at many hospital locations. So welcome. Neidy, Dr. Brown, is our Guard Your Genius expert. Okay. So she is our intellectual property attorney, and she makes sure during the talk that she points out and highlights ways that we can guard our brands while being the multifaceted businesswoman that we are.
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful.
So welcome.
Thank you for joining us today.
Yeah. And thank you for having me.
This is a super important topic, so thank you.
Thank you.
Any
like
fun
to start
Thanksgiving
off
topics yet before we
fun Thanksgiving?
How was Thanksgiving?
I'm not touching that.
No, how was Thanksgiving?
Thanksgiving was good. It was a good break.
I had a lot of food.
I didn't.
And I slept a lot and I rested.
Oh, good.
One of the things we talk about on the show is balance. And so I really took the time to rest this Thanksgiving. So
that's good.
Well, I had a quiet one with my family, and it was
family
early.
And quiet, that goes together.
Yeah, because a lot of the family where we meet up annually, I was traveling, so it was a smaller group of us. And this is the first Thanksgiving I had. There were no sweets.
No desserts at all?
No desserts.
Was that by design or?
I think because we had it at another nephew's house. His wife is very healthy conscious.
Oh.
And so all they had for dessert was a fruit bowl.
Oh.
Fresh fruit. It was very good.
Okay.
But I'm still looking
for something
seeking for some
sweet potato pie.
Exactly. So 2 friends told me they put a slice aside, but I still haven't swung by their house to pick it up because I really have to have my sweet potato pie. I'm not a pumpkin pie lover, but sweet potato pie, yes. It's a must-have on the menu for Thanksgiving.
So, do you like the Patti LaBelle version of it?
I've never tried hers.
I think it's so good. I think it's very good.
Yeah. No, I've never tried it though.
Oh no,
you don't like it? Well, that's why people didn't like my macaroni and cheese.
Yeah, I like the Emma Canada version.
I eat the Latanya
go-to person for sweet
that's
potato
a better
pie.
one.
Which one?
The Latanya Harris, my sister.
Oh, I'm like, I don't know that.
My recipe. So
so that's gold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So everybody knows Natalie always starts us off with the first question for our guests.
Your titles. We always like to ask and find out, what are some of your titles?
Well, as we talk about women wearing many hats and multifaceted, well, my main title is I'm a pastor. That's what my seminary training, and I've been in ministry 30 years. A lot of people don't know that. 25 years as a chaplain and working in various specialized settings like hospice, healthcare. The community, and even with government. I worked with the state attorney's office for a while. And so those are some of the places that I've worked, but my work in church and community is where I get I want to say the most rewards, or that's my passion.
So one of her titles is servant.
Yes.
Servant
Servant.
leadership.
It's
Servant
encompassing.
leader. A lot of
Yeah.
people call me that too. But as a chaplain, I mean, chaplain, that's what we do. We serve. We serve the community. We serve people. We serve our churches, the pastors. And a lot of my work also is education. So I'm a pastoral care educator. That's part of my training as a chaplain. Pastoral care chaplain and pastoral care educator.
So before you educate us on grief during the holidays, I want to tell everybody that she left out that she is also a dancer.
That's right.
She was a trained
Oh, wow.
a trained dancer.
When
She
I
showed
was
me a
your
picture.
age. Yes,
She showed
it's
me a
true.
picture, and I was
It's
like,
true.
"Oh my gosh, she was
Yeah.
a trained dancer."
Mhm.
And every time Alvin Ailey would come into town, and if I ran into her, she would remind me, "Are you going to see Alvin Ailey? Are
Yes,
you-"
that's one of my must stops when he's in town with Kathy Connor. She always gets tickets. She don't no ask, and she just gets the tickets and like we're going. Yeah.
So we have to
Sounds
mention that
nice.
because sometimes
Yeah.
we get so ingrained in our purpose and in our
Yeah.
work that we forget some
Our
of our
passion.
gifts and
Yeah.
passions and hobbies.
Yes.
So I thought that was
It's
So
true. I'm
great to
glad you
mention that.
mentioned that. 'Cause when I first met you, I said to her, I said, you remind me so much of me at your age, you
Mhm.
know? Yeah, I saw a lot of myself in Sharon when I first came to Second Baptist. Yeah.
So we all attended
We
the
all
same
attended.
church.
Right.
Mhm.
And that was one of the reasons that we wanted to bring on Dr. Brown because, like she said, she gave a lot ministry wise in
Mhm.
helping those who were
Mhm.
grieving.
Mhm.
And I kind of want to start it off with the first question.
Mhm.
Mhm.
When we were talking about what are we going to talk about as far as questions for the show, my thought was, should we talk to those who are grieving, or should we talk to those who are supporting people who are grieving? Because sometimes people who are grieving feel like, I know I'm grieving. Why do I need to talk to you about it?
Mm.
I need to understand. I need you to understand how to let me grieve. What is that like? Like learning to, should we be talking to people who are grieving, or should we be learning how to process being a support for those who are grieving?
Well, I work in both. And, as you know, we just finished up our second session last night on surviving the holidays to those who are grieving. And it was basically speaking to those who came on the Zoom were people that were grieving, that wanted to know, how can I help navigate this very challenging time?
Mhm.
Significant dates are hard for grievers. Birthdays, anniversaries, like Mother's Day,
Yeah.
and but the holidays is the longest time. We're looking at, well, culturally here, Thanksgiving kicks off the holiday season, so we're looking at a month out all the way through to New Year's.
Mhm.
So it's a long time, and I heard a woman say last night she wished she can, go to sleep after Thanksgiving and wake up January 2nd.
Mm.
And that shows how, people feel about the holidays. They just want to kind of block it out because they're grieving, and it's a festive time. It's a
Mhm.
joyful time for many. And so they want to know, how can they navigate, their way through the holidays, as well as those who support people. I work with bereavement facilitators because I do a lot of training in bereavement, how to support the bereavement in the community, help them to help people that are grieving.
Right.
So I want to say the program that I run right now, the Grief Share Support Group, is two parts. People learning how to navigate grief and the grief process, and helping people that are supporting those who are going through grief, the grief process, how to do kind of help them manage it,
Mhm.
help walk with them. We call it
Mhm.
co-journeying with them through their grief.
So both
And
are important.
yes, both are really important. And even as a griever and a supporter, learning more things yourself, because grief is so different for everybody. It's unique. It's very individualized, and it's based on the person's temperament, their
Mhm.
personality, their culture,
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so everybody grieves differently. So you learn a lot as a supporter. as well as learning about yourself, little pieces about yourself, listening to their grief story and what they're going through sometimes. So you learn a lot.
I heard you mention Zoom, that it was on Zoom. So has COVID-19 impacted the way you help people deal with grief?
Absolutely. So at Jackson, it hasn't, because we don't have the telehealth function there.
Mhm.
But I had to scale back seeing patients on a one-to-one basis, because everything with chaplaincy is one-to-one.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you go in the room, you have a one-on-one, we call it pastoral encounter with the patient. So that had to be scaled back when the COVID hit. Because we didn't know how this thing was playing out. The world around us was changing very fast. So we had to make quantum leaps and make decisions real fast about our job responsibilities. And, you know, what you would think was a routine task, we had to really step back and start saying, you know, safety first.
Hmm.
And so a lot had to do with physical distancing, which was hard,
Mm-hmm.
you know, to stand at the tip of the bed or by the door and talk to somebody. You couldn't get close. Our whole encounter is about touch and, you know, being there, ministry of presence. So it was very hard, you know, to make some of those changes that we had to make, but you had to be flexible, because we were dealing with something was unknown
Mm-hmm.
and still unknown to a certain degree. People still don't know all the facts about it. We heard about the new variant, but we don't know even about that. And so you just have to be mindful of safety and take care of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Take care of yourself so you can take care of others.
Mm-hmm.
As we often say, when you go and traveling and they're doing the safety checks at the beginning of the traveler, they say if the mask come down, who put it on first? We have to put it on first to help other people. So you really have to take care of yourself. So I think some of the changes, self-care is a big one, and prioritizing, realizing certain things you just can't do anymore and be okay with it. You know, that's why I say you have to be flexible. If you're a person that's rigid, these changes, these fast moving changes will not work. And that's why it bred a lot of conflict, I think, in the healthcare environment, because people, we have it in the church who will say, you know, we always done it that way. But sometimes you have to be able to be flexible.
To evolve. I actually have a follow-up question on the COVID part, not so much as it relates to the way that you shifted and how you provided the service, meaning, you had your distance between people and Zoom, but specifically about how you handled the onslaught of so many people, like in that first year, that 2020, when a lot of people were losing their battle with COVID, the onslaught of all of that, in addition to the way that people died, because so many people died at the hospital without their family there, right? So how did the counseling change to help them manage the fact that they weren't even there?
Absolutely. Great question. Because yes, our grief counseling had to change.
Right.
Because there were visitor restrictions.
Mm-hmm.
So family couldn't be there at the last moment when that person was dying. Especially if it was a COVID death. You were not allowed to come, because it was a restricted environment. Even myself at the beginning, the chaplain was not allowed. So we had to say something like, or the family would call me and say, would you go see my loved one? I had to say, I'll stay in my office and pray for them. And I seriously prayed for them. You know, Pastor always talking about prayer can go where we can't go, but I had to stay there and pray for them until we figured it out. Now I go on the unit and go and pray for them, but at the beginning, no. So it was different, because they have and are having what we call complicated grief. It's complicated by the nature and the type of loss it was, and the way that person died. That traditionally the family couldn't be there present, and even how the funerals are now being handled. after the person passed. At the
Right.
beginning, they were doing more cremations than the traditional funeral, and it was just the immediate family. You couldn't even have friends and family. Everybody was kind of live streaming the funeral, and we're still doing that because we're still keeping it to a small,
Right.
group of people. I think it's 75 now. It used to be 25, then 50. Now it's 75. But I think the whole adjusting to that whole regimen of masking up, wearing masks. We were walking around like what I call in spacesuits.
Not
put on the
personal.
PPE equipment all the time, and the hand washing. We have hand sanitizers at every door you come in. They remove some of those because they want to insist that we wash our hands because it was so easy to just, do this and put on the hands. They wanted us to wash our hands like all the time. Yeah. So the washing of the hands, if I don't wear jewelry anymore to work, even my watch, I took it off. I don't wear my watch since the COVID. So all of those changes we had to adapt to. But in terms of the grief counseling, yes, how we counsel with families was because of the complicated, they were taking it much harder. And of course, most of those deaths were unexpected, unanticipated. And those are the hardest.
Right.
When people are grieving is because they were not able to prepare. You never prepared for the loss for someone's death. But I think when it's unexpected and unanticipated,
right,
it's very hard for the family. And a lot of people are just kind of slumbering through that grief right now, that grief process. Yeah.
Now, you said that prayers can go where you physically can't go. And that's the same for love and support and hope. We've seen during the pandemic that we can be creative in how we connect with people around the world now.
Yes.
What are some of the ways that we can be creative with our peers, our families, in order to help people during their grieving process, to show love? What are some of the things we can do?
I like what people started doing with the drive-bys. I think those were really nice.
I remember those. It feels like a lifetime ago.
It does feel like a lifetime ago.
The elderly setting up those tents outside. If I noticed in my community, a lot of people set up tents for Thanksgiving for family to come over. So if you have in large groups, I think having the tents, if you have the space on your property, having the tents and just having people to come over and show some love. We cannot sit with them too long because everything, the physical distance is the hardest one too in the grief, and people not able to come over and sit with. We call it having a shiva call. Sit with the people and be there for them and comfort them and talk with them, because a lot with grief is talking, encouraging. But I think the drive-bys are tremendously helpful to families and to the bereaved, as much as they would celebrate their birthdays as well. But I think the drive-bys, finding ways, we just did grief bags for surviving the holiday. Mickey and I, we did grief bags and handed them out to some of the bereaved families.
Just letting you know, I was thinking about you.
That was a nice touch. And we had a regimen of stuff that we put in there, lifesavers to keep them afloat. And Hershey kisses to remember they're loved. And little things.
That's really
had
sweet.
A list of things, what they meant. And then Mickey had her pastor to write a note to everybody, and a note of encouragement to put in the bag.
Handwritten note.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then we gave them a survival guide, almost like a what do you call those things you put on when you're in the water?
A life
vest. Yes, to show them you can make it. You can survive this. To encourage them on the journey.
Right.
Yeah. But I think the support group that I run is a weekly support group on Zoom. Is certainly one of the best ways to physical distance and at the same time feel supported, because there's other people on there that they can relate to that are going through similar challenges, and the wisdom in the room, in the virtual room, help them to cope and help them to move
so that's
forward.
open to the public?
Yes,
that's fantastic.
So we were talking about how we watched Station 19, and it's like a spinoff from Grey's Anatomy with Shonda Rhimes. And on there, they experienced the loss of one of the firefighters, and the therapist there was saying that people always say you go through 5 stages of grief, and she was like, actually, that was actually created for people who were transitioning, who were passing.
Right.
That's not really how it actually happens for those who are grieving someone else's death. So can you talk to us about that? Because I think sometimes
I've always assumed it was universal for everybody.
right.
Yeah.
And it's not. So can you talk to us about that so we can understand those differences?
Well, the stages of grief was developed by a nurse, actually. She was an oncology nurse, Kubler-Ross. And she noticed working with patients who got a terminal diagnosis, they will go through these different stages from the day they got the news to as they, approach the end of life. They went through these different stages. And like anger, of course, you get angry when you find out you have a limited amount of time to live. What do? If you look at that movie Bucket List, you remember that one? And they both went off and they had a bucket list of things to do. Within 6 months, both of them were doing it. And then they made a contract with each other, which one dies first and what they were going to do. It's a really good movie to watch. But you develop this bucket list. And so you have the anger, and then you have the denial, and you're like, I'm going to beat this, and they start looking for alternative ways, options, getting second opinions, maybe going out of the country to find, alternative medicine. So those are the stages. She found anger, denial, and then the bargaining, when you find out, well, there's no purposeful recovery, and bargaining with God. Well, Lord, my daughter is going to be graduating in 6 months. Would you let me live long enough
to see her do that?
The bargaining with God, the bargaining with, trying to stay alive because you have these something significant coming up. Something meaningful coming up, and you want to be alive to be part of it. So you have the anger, denial, bargaining, and then then anticipating your transition and being able to accept it, that acceptance. But they grapple with all these stages, and then later on, people developed it or took those stages and applied it to grief. Well, sometimes depends on when your grief starts. If you're a caregiver caring for someone with Alzheimer's, you will experience some of those grief stages, because I think the grief starts as you're caring for that person. You see them losing their memory and losing how they relate to you as mom and daughter, or dad and son, that kind of thing. You start being angry because there's a role reversal there. You have to take it. You have to be their dad now. And so it brings a lot of anger. And there's a change in identity and all of that. So, and then they have what we call anticipatory grief, because they're anticipating that this person eventually is going to die. That's how the disease is going to play out. And they get very upset. They get depressed. So they go through some of those stages. But I think, like in an unexpected death, when somebody dies suddenly, there's anger as well. How dare you leave me and abandon me? I was at the funeral Saturday, and for one of my ministry leaders that just lost her husband, she just kept crying, why did you leave me? Why did you leave me? She kept saying that. And, you feel abandoned. You have anger because this person was like torn from you. So the anger is one of the strongest emotions that we see. But with unexpected death comes a lot of confusion, a lot of different emotions. And so I see it not as a stages, but this ball of emotions. I wish I could show you the one I usually, when I do my training, it's a ball of emotions that you have going on at the same time, because you might be in shock because it was unexpected, and you're numb for a long time. And that numbness can lead you to even risky behavior. You see a lot of road rage. And sometimes because people are kind of shut down, they don't want to deal, they're in denial that to accept the reality that that person is gone. And so they just, they're agitated, they're anxious, and they have a short fuse. Again, depends on the person's temperament. They may have been like that a little bit already, but now it's exacerbated.
Yeah.
It's like, it's just ballooning. So the stages, no, I would say it's a lot of things going on this scene, because grief is a reaction to loss, but the first reaction is emotionally, and then I would say physically, mentally, spiritually, socially, behaviorally. It comes out in different behaviors. So it's in many dimensions that grief is happening at the same time. It affecting all those dimensions of a person's physical anatomy, and therefore, it's not just stages.
And all of that is happening as they are navigating funeral preparations and going to work and still doing life.
And work is where it really hits you, what we call cognitively, because you're consumed with grief and you still have to concentrate. You have to do your work. If you're in a job where you have to produce and they have to keep score, I see a lot of people lost their jobs because they couldn't keep up. They couldn't keep up. What they had was a predictable way of working. It is.
And I don't think that like corporate America has developed a way to deal with people going through grief, right? Like there's nothing in place. Like when you have a baby, you get maternity leave, right? I don't know. I mean, I don't, is there like a policy or a process? There's nothing, right? When you're grieving, you're
like 3 days, they give you
right
3 days.
And it's your vacation time.
Yeah.
Or in addition to your vacation time, they'll give you like 3 days.
Yeah.
But then you either take vacation or you have to come back to work.
And so I used to do a training called Monday Morning Grief. So you go, they let you out Friday, and you go, if you have to travel north for a funeral, you come back Monday morning, you're at your desk, and you're like, what am I doing here? You can't even focus. You can't do anything. You're like pretty much numb and shut down, because it depends on the type of law. And so workplace grief is almost abusive because people be nice to you. Like for the first 2 weeks, they'll be very supportive. But then afterwards, if you're not,
you got to go.
If somebody else is picking up the slack for you,
exactly.
And they're like, oh, when's she going to snap out of this? When's she going to get over this? And of course, there's no such thing as getting over.
Ever.
You go through it, and we don't know how long it's going to take, for that person to go through.
What would you advise those people who are experiencing that right now? They're still grieving. They're still trying to become 100% in their work ethics. What do you advise them to do, and how to respond to those who are insensitive to their grieving needs right now?
I would say take some time off if you have time, or just take a leave of absence, because first of all, it affects your health. It affects your health. The more you try to fight it, and you end up later on with health problems. We see that. It's stressful. Grief is stressful. So you're dealing with stress hormones that over a period of time, it starts affecting the chemicals in your brain. That's why people get depressed or go into clinical depression. That's what we're seeing right now, even with the pandemic. The pandemic is 2 years out. So we're dealing with chronic stress on a global level.
Yeah.
Treat the pandemic like it's grief. Everybody's grieving. The whole planet is grieving. Our whole world have changed. And so we're having chronic stress. And that's why we're seeing a lot of, like I said, road rage. Look what's happening on the airlines. When you travel, you're putting your life pretty much at risk. You're up in the air. I had one going up for my brother's. When my brother died, this guy just started going crazy.
Oh my God.
And I like, where's the U.S. Marshals on the plane? And he was up and really in the stewardess face. And, I thought he was going to harm her. So you have a lot of that. They stopped serving alcohol on the flights, but, not on the airports. They sit there while they're waiting in the bars, and then they get on the plane, and it's just crazy. But we're going to have to guard ourselves, I think, against all of this, and find some kind of mental health counseling in the process to help us to navigate, because everybody I think is having chronic stress, and it's affecting us mentally. And if you already had borderline mental health deficits or disorders, this is where it's exacerbated. So yesterday I was almost crying because a very close person to me came in the unit, and it just threw me for a loop. I know this person very well, a professional like myself, but was Baker acted, brought in by the police.
Yeah.
And you're like, God, what is happening? What is happening to us? And it's people checking on each other. That's one of the things that I'm getting teary about it. That Cinnamon always talked about, checking on people. Let's check on each other. Maybe we get so, I said closet ourselves, and we don't check on one another. But I would say to check on people. So I made a list of people. I have a to-do list on the side of my bed. Every morning I wake up, I take enough time to, call certain people and follow up with them.
That is a
list.
great idea.
I don't get to all of them, but before the week is out, I can check off that list that I've touched base with those people.
That's a
You know
really
what I'm
good idea.
saying?
Yeah.
That's actually a really good
Yeah.
place to stop,
Yeah.
because we
Oh,
have to get Nady's tip. But I really like that, like making that list of people to
It's
check on.
doable.
And you're right,
Yes.
because she used to always Cinnamon is a really good friend.
Yeah.
But she would tell us to check on your friend, check on your people, just a quick check-in. It doesn't have to be long, just to
Right.
make sure they're okay, because it's always the ones you think are okay that can use.
That's not okay.
Yeah.
Including herself.
Yeah. So that's absolutely right.
And we were going to ask for business women how they can be supportive of their team, and I think that's the key
it.
right there.
That's the
And not
answer.
check on the job assignments,
Check
but
on
just
them.
Check on
them.
the
Check on the person.
person.
Right. I
Mhm.
think as multifaceted women, it's important that we're not just focusing on the processes,
Mhm.
but people over processes,
Mm-hmm.
people over projects, and just take time to check on your team.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
And that was the big change. I think I saw more healthcare workers during the COVID than patients. I just
That
felt
makes
I had
sense.
to be there
Yeah.
for them. I mean, some of them were bottoming out. Some of them were just having, and in addition to the COVID, I mean, people had so many additional stressors. People that couldn't find childcare, they had children. So all of a sudden the school closed, and then you couldn't get people to come to your house because of physical distancing.
It was
To
crazy.
come and take care of the kids. So, the nurses, they were going crazy.
So a lot of
like,
people are experiencing trauma.
yeah. So it's just a traumatic time. And with trauma comes, well, PTS, post-traumatic stress. A lot of people are having, which is the chronic stress. That we see a lot of people are having. And so therefore we're seeing so many flare-ups everywhere, and people with short fuses, and so much violence. The violence has like doubled in the country. Yeah.
Dr. Chaplin, thank you so much for that. Natalie's going to give us our tip, and then we want to know, for those who want to know more and want to get on these Zoom calls with you, if you can tell us how they could get on. So we're going to do our Guard Your Genius tip, and then we'll come back to that so that more people can be.
So I'm gonna make it short, but you can find this information on our Instagram at Guard Your Genius. So I wanted to, the end of the year, folks are thinking about new business ventures for the new year, and I just want to share on Instagram, you can find 5 essential business contracts that all business people, but we're talking to our business women, should have in place when they are launching a business. So I'll mention 3, but again, you can go on Instagram for all 5. So the first one, you want to have a service contract in place. You want to make sure that you are clearly defining what your deliverables are, so there's no misunderstanding between you and your client. If you're hiring independent contractors, you want to have agreements that govern what that relationship is going to be like and what the expectations are. And you definitely want to have a non-disclosure. All of my boss women out there, please make sure that you guys have standard non-disclosure documents that you're having people sign, especially when you're sharing confidential information that that you want to keep private. So there are a few others that you can find on @GuardYourGenius on Instagram.
Thank you, Neidy.
You're welcome.
That's a great tip.
Yeah, Neidy always has
It
great
just
tips.
happened to
I
me 2
tried.
weeks ago.
Oh, really?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
Right.
if you need support, Neidy is
Yeah.
your girl.
Yeah,
I got you.
she's your legal genius.
Yeah, I had a gig, somebody called, but I know this lady. So it was to do a retreat out of town. So I got my tickets, and all of that. Spent a lot of time preparing,
Mhm.
the materials,
Mhm.
copying, got special journals for the girls and so forth. We do it.
Mm.
We do the book club, but and at the last minute was canceled. Well, not her fault. When she got to the retreat, the accommodations were horrible. So she had to quickly shift gears
Mhm.
and find another. It cost her a lot of money. She had to put a lot of money down and never got the money back yet from the last one. But and here I was out the money from
And
all
the
that I put in
time.
there.
Mhm.
So my niece that lives with me now, 22, and she turns to me and she goes, "Auntie, that's why you get contracts."
Yep.
Listen to your
Right,
niece.
listen to
That's
you.
why you have a contract.
So I'm sitting here going like this,
Neidy, she brought up a good point
Mhm.
that I think is a double tip to what you were talking about
Yeah.
to end the show, is that sometimes it's the ones that we're close to or that
Yes.
we
It's
are
always
familiar
almost
with,
that,
we
yeah.
forget
Yeah, we
to
work
do
with
those
her.
things.
Yeah,
It's
she
like,
has
oh,
a
we've done it
foundation. We
before.
collaborate.
Right.
Listen, contracts are the scripts we follow when things don't go the way we expected.
Right.
So we have our scripts. This is what
Contract.
we signed. This is what we said we were going to do. So
Right.
they matter.
So it matters no matter the relationship,
No
the
matter.
situation.
Yeah.
Get a contract.
Get a contract.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
So, Reverend Brown, where can you be found? Because we are over time. Where
Oh,
can
wow.
you be found on social media? If people want to look you up and connect with you to learn more, are you on
It's
social
on
media?
my card. Yes, I am. Well, on the Facebook is Reverend Brown.
right.
Okay.
Reverend Shirley Brown. On Instagram is Faith and Health Leader.
Okay.
Faith and Health Leader. And on the web, World Wide Web, is my it's called Center for Faith and Health Global Network. That is my nonprofit organization, and it's faithhealthglobalnetwork.org.
faithhealthglobalnetwork.org.
Mhm.
And her email is sbrown7337@comcast.net.
Yeah.
And so if people want to be a part of the support groups, they can email you or go to the website.
No,
And-
I'm not taking a registration on the website because it's a collaboration between
they'll
Second Baptist, myself, and Sweet Home.
So they'll need to
So,
email you. and
Email
then-
me. Yeah, we're
if you
doing
have
everything
openings.
through. Yeah. And then I
Perfect.
will send a Zoom link. And that way people register too, because they have to get a workbook. So we have to get them the workbook and
Get
so
that
forth.
information.
Yeah. And
Perfect.
pay for it.
Perfect.
Well, we're so glad that you came on the
Thank
show.
you.
We're very
Thank you for your
Thank you.
time.
Thank you.
Much.
Sharon, where can people find us on
Oh.
online, on social?
If you go to Instagram, you can go to Enterprise Empress, Facebook Enterprise Empress, YouTube
Enterprise
Empress. I
Empress.
don't know why I'm saying it 3 times. Enterprise Empress.
I subscribed today.
Oh, good.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you very much. So until next time, everybody, ladies, wear your crowns, wear them well. Make sure you take care of yourselves and others
Yeah, self-care.
during this holiday
time,
season.
yeah.
Until next time.
Until next time.
All right. You all take care.
Bye.